My name is Arianna Orland, and I am a freelance creative director and experienced designer. And today's talk is titled Love for the Uncertain, How Designers Wield Ambiguity. So when I'm not here with you, for about the last year, I've been working on a data visualization at Twitter called Twitter Aurora. It is a visualization that you can actually fly through. There's these interest taxonomies. There's a controller. It's pretty cool. I'm also the co-founder of Invisible Talks, which is a design conference in San Francisco about the creative process. And we had our first year at the beginning of this year, January. We're doing it again January 17th, if anybody is Bay Area based or wants to come. We have an incredible lineup of speakers. This is Kelly Anderson. She actually joined us this year. She's a former Adobe Creative resident. She's also the designer of the branding for Munchery, for Russ and Daughters, and she has a really cool book out now called This Book is a Planetarium. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but she explains sound and the night sky through pop-up book engineering and technology. It's a very cool book. We also have lunch at the conference, so if you're not into the creative process or design but you like eating, there's food. So that's always good. I'm also the founder and creator of Paper Jam Press, which is a letterpress poster and apparel company. If you are not familiar with letterpress printing, it was the way to print anything before we had Command P from about the 15th century to the 19th century and well into the 20th century. So I take these wood blocks, there's also metal type, I set them up on the press, and you have to pull each poster through one by one. It's a very analog process. These are some of our posters. I like to think of them as creative mantras that bolster us all towards certainty. And later in today's talk, there will be a quiz, and we will be giving out to the quiz correct answerers posters. So when it's quiz time, don't blurt out the answers, raise your hand, because I want to make sure that the person actually has a chance to win, which will be really cool. I also have a protest a protest art collective called Countertype with Dirty Bandits. And we did this on President's Day. We had some feelings, and we hooked up a mobile projector rig and projected those feelings on the urban landscape in San Francisco. This is a little bit more about my career. I like to think of it as breaking out into these three chapters, kind of by geography. So I started in the Bay Area. That was my first design job. I moved to New York. I did a master's degree, and I've been back in the Bay Area for this chapter that we're in now. I've worked client side, I've worked agency side, I've worked in tech, I've worked in advertising, and you can see kind of later in my career, kind of mid-career, I started teaching, I started Paper Jam Press, Countertype, Invisible Talks, and all that to say that I've really stared down this kind of blank page, this creative beginning, this place where maybe we might get stuck in our work many, many, many times. And I've seen design methodologies succeed and fail, and teams succeed and fail, and creative outcomes that you didn't think were going to happen many, many times. And what I've realized is that I'm just as interested in the artifact and the outcome as I am in the process and the journey. I love the journey. I love the kind of not knowing and the buckling up and the challenges and the things that and the moments that you kind of have to improvise, which is what led me to the design conference and what led me to this talk today. So I wanted to start out with this quote from Twyla Tharp, where she says, "The blank space can be humbling, but I've faced it my whole professional life. It's my job, it's also my calling. Bottom line, filling empty space constitutes my identity." And why I like this quote so much, well, I like it for a lot of different reasons, but the one that I want to point out and share with you guys today is that she's really saying that the work, the act of design, the act of choreographing in her case, is a calling. And I think when something is a calling for you, the things, the ups and downs, the fear, the frustration, the moments that don't work, the moments when you walk away, the moments when you think you're bad at it, it's just part of it, right? And when something is a calling, I think it discharges some of the emotional reactions that we have when we find ourselves stuck in our work. So a little bit more about Twyla. She has choreographed over 130 dances, including figure skating routines. How cool is that? Figure skating routines, Broadway shows, and she has also had this journey through confronting this blank page, confronting these creative impasses, her whole professional career, as she says. Has anyone read The Creative Habit? Oh, we got one. Okay, yeah. So Twyla Tharp also has a few books. This is The Creative Habit. This book is amazing. It is filled with exercises and activities that you can do to write your own creative autobiography, and she shares 25 questions and gives the answers that she would give to those questions herself. And she really deconstructs these habits and these rituals that she does to maintain her creative instrument. And why I think this is so valuable is because she is taking this idea of the muse and the creativity, and she's saying, no, it's work, right? It's an instrument, it's a muscle, and it's something that we have to maintain and care for. And I think that when we think about the creativity inside of us as having this kind of gravity and thinking about it in these terms, there's an affordance there. There's an affordance that makes us kind of have to step back and realize, like, you don't just keep an instrument and lock it away in the closet. You have to play it every day. You have to clean it. You have to really care for it. You have a relationship with it. And so I really like this idea that this muscle, this instrument is something that we have a relationship with and we have a responsibility to. So today's talk is about ambiguity, and I thought that we would start with some definitions. So ambiguity, the quality of being open to one or more interpretation, inexactness, vagueness, obscurity, uncertainty, and ambivalence. Who likes a creative brief that is obscure and uncertain? That's like the worst, right? It's like, I read this whole creative brief and I have no idea what the client wants. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. And if we look at design, to conceive of a plan, to devise a specific function, form, method, goal, purpose, which is so relaxing to me and feels like, yes, right? The thing that I need to do is going to be quantified well. I'm going to have all the information I need, and then I can just be in flow, right? It's just that easy. It's all set up, all the pre-work is done, and I can find flow. And I feel like that doesn't happen all the time, right? And if we look at ambiguity and kind of design in opposition to each other, we can see that they might feel far apart, right? If things are ambiguous, I can't design. And then you might also say that actually the act of designing is a way to overcome vagueness, right? We overcome vagueness by applying form. We overcome uncertainty by creating a goal. And I think that that's true, and I think that the design process is predicated on that. But, you know, if you Google design process, you can see that there's lots of different ways to interpret what we do. There's 5 phases, there's 3 phases, there's 8 phases. You know, I like this one: ask, imagine, plan, create, improve. Those feel like good phases. Examine, understand, ideate, experiment, distill. And I think that we create these frameworks to organize what we're doing. And we also create these frameworks so that we can sell this process to our clients, to business partners, because we need a way to sort of say design isn't magic. There are these skills and there are these steps. And I do think that that's true. I think that that this idea that Damian Newman has, which was in a little bit of my Google research, he kind of talks about that in the beginning things are a little messy, right? And so we apply research. So we're in this uncertain phase. We apply research, and then we get some insights, and we're able to develop a concept, right? And then we get to this place where things are much clearer. We're in focus, and then we're in design. And I would love this to be true. I would love this to be true every time I, touch the mouse. But I also feel that it's an oversimplification of what actually goes on when we're in the trenches with our teams, with our clients, behind our computers. So I want to say that this talk is not a rejection of the design process. I love the design process. I love all the different ones that I've tried. I love the way that it's evolved over the years. And when I say it, I mean like the multitude of them. There isn't just one. I think that my fascination has led me to this talk and to this discussion. So it is not a rejection at all, right? But it's an acknowledgement that the design process doesn't always follow this perfect formula. You could be in the research phase. Let's be honest. You could be in the research phase with a client, right? The client thinks you're in the research phase, and the truth is the researcher's sick, or you didn't budget for it, or maybe you had the intern go out and do the research, right? Or the research came back and it's not what it needs to be, so you got to go do another round, right? So you're in this neat and tidy phase, but really there's kind of this practical reality of how the work is getting done. So, the design process is a formula, but I also think that there's this alchemy at play, right? This moment where you're going to have to improvise, this moment where you're going to have to adapt. And I think that I hope that this talk is really a set of ideas that you guys can take back to your work and apply when you find yourself stuck. And I'm also not saying that every time you find yourself stuck, it is the sole responsibility of you as the designer or, creative director or person on the team to just fix it, right? I think there are times when it's not yours to fix, but I do think that there are times when you kind of want to, but you feel afraid or you feel frustrated. And that's what this talk is really about, is those moments when you feel afraid or when you feel frustrated, the things that you can do. Ooh, and it's also a demonstration of the very cool keynote effects, if anybody likes to try that. So it's really a discussion of the ways to move through ambiguity and to find flow. So I also wanted to talk about Christy Tillman. She gave a talk at 99U in 2016 about inviting yourself to the table. And she says inviting yourself to the table is the moment you decide to create opportunities without asking for permission or waiting on an invitation. And again, what I'm arguing is that in these moments where you're stuck, where you're in this lava field, it's an opportunity for you to step forward into your creative power, into your ability to lead, into your ability to demonstrate vision, and invite yourself to the table, right? Take action on that feeling or that impulse that you might have, because I believe it's our responsibility to create artifacts and to find solutions to problems that make the invisible visible. I love being a designer. I absolutely love it. I feel like it's a privilege. I feel like every time I get to get in the trenches with people and ideas and be the person who is, the person whose job it is to materialize this work, I feel like it's a privilege. And I think that it's that force inside of us, right? The whole reason that we got into this profession to begin with, right, is that instinct and that point of view and that perspective. And I think that sometimes in our work we can find ourselves overcome by patterns that don't serve us anymore. So. And I really do feel that as designers, we commit these acts of radical collaboration. So we commit these radical acts with each other, with our clients, with the teams, with the cross-functional teams that we work with. Creating something is an act of bravery, and doing that with a group of people and doing that in a way that we're all connected to our work and sharing that in a public way is risk, right? And so yeah. I'll leave it there. So what I also wanted to say is that ambiguity is potential, right? So this lava field that seems like an unfriendly place is a place for us to really lead. So getting back to Twyla, the blank space can be humbling, but I've faced it my whole professional life. It's my job and it's also my calling. I wanted to get into sort of the distinction between a job and a calling. So a job is benefits, paycheck, your life outside of work, right? I think if when you get to the career level, it's the same but more emphasis on advancement. So you might think, yeah, it's just a paycheck, but I kind of hope that I get that promotion, right? So you start to feel a little bit more invested in the work. And when something is a calling, it's actually a deep alignment with who you are as a person. It's a personal and emotional connection to your work. And I know I emphasized this earlier on, this idea of a calling, but when you're in this alignment with the work that you're doing, some of these things that can feel like frustration or fear or create this impasse, they're discharged in some way because it's just what you do, right? It's just part of it. So maybe we'll get to a place where we can kind of see that there might be a way through this lava field. But I also wanted to talk about the causes, right? So how do we get to this place where it's like we can't figure out how to move forward, whether it's in the beginning, whether it's in the middle, whether it's in the end, whether it crops up a million times, on the same project. And I think on the too much information side, it's filled with pivots and feedback and hallway conversations and hearsay about what leadership wants. This one, I hate this one. Are you ever in a meeting and someone's not there and then your teammate says, oh, well, Michelle, let's say Michelle's the creative director, says, oh, Michelle said she doesn't like yellow. Michelle's not in the room. You have no idea why Michelle doesn't like yellow, but all of a sudden Michelle's wishes are like invoked in a way that is not actionable for you, right? I think decks, and more decks. So I love a good deck, but I feel like we as collaborators sometimes can't communicate with each other without this deck. And I think the danger of the deck is that all this information is on the z-axis, right? Slide 27 of your deck, slide 32 of your deck, slide 89 of your deck. And I mean, do you know what is on slide 27 of the last deck that you made? Probably not. So how can you expect me as your teammate and your collaborator to have a command over this depth of information, right? And so in this environment where there's just too much information, it's very difficult to parse how to move forward. Or have you ever started a project and there's like ancient project history and you're given access to a directory and there's like 100 things in there? And how do you know what is valuable? How do you know what's meaningful, right? And so you can kind of find yourself either frustrated or fearful of like, how am I going to move forward? So on the not enough information side, I think that there's institutional amnesia, swoop and poop, blind momentum. So swoop and poop is like, let's say Michelle actually is available to come to the meeting, but only for 10 minutes of the whole meeting, right? So she's not there the whole time, a whole bunch of stuff has transpired, and Michelle comes in, says, I don't like yellow, and then leaves, right? And you're like, what am I supposed to do, I think that on the institutional amnesia side of things, I've seen this many, many, many times where let's say that a team decides to create something like personas, and it can take 3 months, 6 months, 5 months, 5 weeks, whatever it is, and you all work together on this tool, and then the minute the tool is created, we forget it exists. Right? And so it's like we can't keep all of this information in our brains, and it's very difficult to move forward. And I think in these environments we have some reactions, right? So there's the frustration, like I don't get paid enough, it's not my job, right? I'm over it, I don't know where to start, I don't have enough information to be successful. And I think that these are very valid. Some of these are very valid. It's valid to be frustrated. Some of the things I've described are frustrating. Not having enough information to be successful, that's extremely valid. And that is, I think, a muscle that you need to develop and say, okay, like, is this the moment where I'm actually going to invite myself to the table? Or is this the moment when it's not for me to do that? And, I think in addition to frustration, there's also fear. And fear is a really big one, because when we start these projects, when we're at the beginning of these things, we can't see that there's this like incredible, unique journey that's about to unfold, right? It's different every time. We might be practicing the very same design methodology. You might be in design thinking, you might be in Scrum, you might be in a proprietary methodology that your company actually, follows and your teams follow. But just because you're in that sort of meta structure doesn't necessarily mean that the journey that you're about to go on is gonna be regular in any way, right? And so we're kind of in the state where it's like, okay, what am I supposed to do? This sucks. And Twyla Tharp, I think this was in 2003, Fast Company asked her, the empty studio, is that terrifying to you or thrilling? So I'm just curious with you guys, blank page, terrifying, thrilling? Terrifying. Raise your hands. Terrifying. Okay. Got about maybe, I don't know, half-ish. Thrilling? Ooh, thrilling. Ooh, you thrill seekers. Wow. Okay. Well, Twyla Tharp says it's both, right? It's a matter of discipline, of not distilling exhilaration from terror, because terror, loathsome as it is very energizing. To channel that, to call it excitement, enthusiasm, curiosity, maybe that's not a bad thing, right? So she's saying that it's all of it. It's my calling, right? So the terror mixed with the exhilaration is just a force that I channel through my creative instrument to execute this work. I think on the fear side, this might be familiar to everyone. I'm not good at Photoshop. Will I ever be good at Photoshop, like really good? I have no idea, right? What I see in my mind's eye doesn't translate. I think that this one is very common, particularly as for people who are earlier in their careers, right? You have these ideas and you don't have mastery over the tools and you can't get it out, and that can be really frustrating, right? But I want it so fast. But they want it so fast. So I also think early on in our careers, we don't understand our velocity as designers. We don't understand how fast we're going to be able to do something. So if a client comes to us and says, I want something in 2 days, and you say yes, and you literally spend 30 hours in those 2 days trying to get this work done, the next time somebody comes and says you have 2 days, that's terrifying. That's terrifying. So, I can't be creative on command. This is another one that I fell prey to when I was younger in my career, where I thought that like my ability to design was more related to an artistic practice, kind of driven by a muse, right? So I could only be creative when I felt like it. And that's not acceptable. If you have a job, and I worked in the marketing department of Walmart.com. And if you have a job and the Walmart circular has a deadline, whether you feel like being creative or not, it doesn't matter, right? And I think that if you are younger in your career, it's easy to not have command over your creative agency. So the top 3 demons that plague me today still are, am I good enough? Right? I didn't go to design school, and after 20 years of doing this, I still think sometimes like I shouldn't be doing this. And I want everyone in this room to know that we're all good enough. And those patterns of like, am I good enough, are literally ways to keep us stuck and keep us out of our creative flow. And there are these reactions that come up right before we design, right before we do what it is that we're intended to do, right? And they're just ways to keep us stuck. I don't know enough about design. This is my number 2, like, worst fear. Who knows everything about design, right? It is impossible to know everything about design, but I think that I don't know enough. And I want to say that that's why you're here. That's why I'm here. That's why you're here at 8:15 in the morning. That's why you came to Adobe Max. That's why you read the books that you do, and you take the classes that you take, and you look at the blogs that you do, and you do the work that you do, right? And the last one is that my nerves will get the best of me. So it doesn't matter if I'm speaking to a small group or a large group. I was invited to speak a couple months ago to a group of 20 people, and still to this day, I have a problem with my nerves. And I want anybody in this room who has a problem with their nerves to know that you can work on it. You can work on it, you can get better, and this should not be an obstacle for you to find your flow and to find your creative voice. And I want you to know that you're not alone. So if you don't remember anything else from this talk, remember that the antidote for fear is curiosity. The antidote for fear is curiosity, right? Anytime that you feel frustrated or that you can't move, getting curious about that thing, about an aspect of the thing, about the why of the thing, taking one step forward will unlock you. And the only thing that's really in the way is you. Right? You get to decide, is this the moment that I'm going to invite myself to the table? Is this the moment that I'm going to take action? So all this stuff, all this noise, the do I have the skills and I'm not good at Photoshop goes away. Did you guys know Keynote does that? Like, how cool is that? Should we see it again? I mean, we could do this all day. In fact, this is not supposed to be part of the talk, but you can just put a whole bunch of stuff in Keynote and then just like virtually light it on fire and then get rid of all your frustrations. You could write like hate notes about your coworkers and just like poof. Okay, so I have come around to this different perspective, right? I have come around after 20 years of doing this stuff to a different perspective, which is that I trust my instincts. I trust that voice inside of me, because that voice inside of me is informed by coming to events like this and by having the conversations that I do and by reading the things that I read, right? And I trust that, and I feel that I am inviting myself to the table by expressing my vision and my point of view, right? And I think that on the curiosity side, I ask myself, what can I learn about an industry by doing this work? I don't know everything about banking, but I might have a client in banking, and I have two choices. I can roll my eyes and say, ugh, banking, or I can say, you know what, banking is cool. I'm going to go to 3 different banks, on Saturday and just kind of see what's going on there. Right? Because all of these opportunities are really aspects to just sharpen our vision, sharpen our ability to create. My creative self deserves care and feeding. I think that this is a really big one. This is what we were talking about with Twyla Tharp, but this idea that the creative self is an instrument or a muscle, right, puts us in different relationship to our creative practice. What new skills can be acquired? This one, I've always thought that this one this has always been my reaction. I feel like when you're working with a large team, sometimes there's a preference for software. Maybe you're doing user experience design. Maybe everybody's working in XD. You don't know how to work in XD, and you've been working in Sketch, and so it's an opportunity for you to take a new skill. I understand my creative velocity and can estimate time, so we were talking about this. I think that when you're young in your career, start writing that down, keeping it somewhere, keep it on the back of a napkin. How long did it take you to perform this task, right? How long did it take you to get your work done? So the next time someone comes to you and says, I need it in 2 days, you can have a more informed perspective and say, you gave me 2 days last time. It actually took me, 30 hours. Really what I need is 4 days. Right? And you can start to negotiate. How can I frame my work so my partners can better understand it? So have you guys heard the story that Michael Barut, when asked to make the logo bigger by his clients, will print out 3 versions of the logo, the largest size being the current size, right? Largest size, current size, which one do you like? Okay, so that is like a Jedi level of like partner and client mastery that I hope to achieve. But really framing the work that you're doing so that your partners and your clients and the people that you're working with can give you actionable feedback, can meet you where you are in the work, and rather than giving you subjective feedback, too much information, not enough information that doesn't help you advance. Because the truth is that the ideas will come, right? We know this because this is why we do the work that we do. We have this energy inside of us and the ideas come. So, ooh, confetti. Cool. So I want to take you guys on a little ride on the Wayback Machine to the year 2000. Who remembers the year 2000? Some people in this room do. Oh, yeah, we got a fan for the year 2000. Who remembers the Y2K paranoia? Yes. Okay. So Y2K, so what we thought was going to happen is like there would be no food, like phones wouldn't work, computers wouldn't work. But the computer glitch was that computer software understood a year as a 2-digit number. So like 1998 was 98. And so the thought was when we got to the year 2000, computers would think that we were in the year 1900 and not 2000. And like the whole world was going to just completely stop. And this is a gossip magazine, the Weekly World News. But it actually is a fantastic encapsulation of this kind of paranoia. This was my cell phone. Who had this cell phone? Yes, look at all that. Okay, great. It had this really cool opening animation. And yeah, it didn't do much more than that. Okay, quiz. This is the quiz. Who knows what year the iPhone came out? Raise your hands. Oh my God, I can hardly see people. Okay. Oh, wait. Yeah, you had your hand up. You were wearing like a striped scarf. No, I'm sorry. Okay. You on the right here in the front. 2007! That's right. 2007. 2007, the iPhone came out. And this will be important in a second. This was my computer setup. How cool is this computer setup? I was so proud of myself because I couldn't afford this computer at my house, right? And the company that I was working for, they gave me this setup. And I had to have a Jazz drive because the files that I was transferring, they were way too big. They were like 30 megs. And there was no way that like you could like do anything, but like you couldn't even, yeah, you had to like put them on the Jazz drive and then hand the disc to your friend. And then this monitor, I love this monitor because it was color accurate. And I was very, very proud of this setup. Oh, okay, next part of the quiz, Destiny's Child. Who can name Destiny's Child, one of Destiny's Child's hits from the early 2000s? Yes, you have a pen in your hand, yes. You are correct. Say My Name, 2001. Congratulations. Come see me after for your poster. Okay, and this is the heart of it and why we were talking about the iPhone. So this is kind of what an ATM looked like. And you can see that we were starting to migrate users over to this idea of touch. But this machine is kind of a hybrid, right? There are buttons to the right and left of the screen because you didn't used to be able to touch the screen. And then there are buttons down below. And then eventually we trained users to be able to touch the screens. But this was basically the extent of touchscreen technology at the consumer level. And so I worked for Walmart.com. And our job was to create a music and movies kiosk, so like a station, in the music and movies section of Walmart stores where you could walk up and if you were looking for like a Tom Petty CD and it wasn't on the shelf, you could go to an end cap, that's the thing on the end of the aisle, and you would see this station and you could order the Tom Petty CD. And what was cool about that was it was the first time that Walmart.com was taking their inventory and putting it in a Walmart store, right? It was spec'd already when I joined the project that it was going to be touchscreen technology because there was a problem with shrink and also just damage in the stores of the peripherals of mice and keyboards. So that was the project that I started on. And I had come from Studio Archetype, which was acquired by Sapient, and so it was a design agency. And so we asked all the kind of questions that you would when you started on a project like this. So we wanted to know what our audience was, and we were told it's everyone. And I think that when you, so I grew up in California, and I didn't have a lot of exposure going to Walmart. And in San Francisco, there aren't any Walmarts. And so you don't realize that Walmart is a very ubiquitous part of almost everyone else's lives, right? And so the everyone audience problem, and particularly the kind of Walmart's interpretation of that was beyond our grasp. So we said, okay, well, what kind of research do you have? And they said, none. We don't have any research. And then we said, okay, well, how about some budget? No. And then we said, fine, closest store. We're going to figure this out ourselves. So there was one store, and it was 40 miles away. And this was at the peak of the sort of dot-com boom, sort of the first time. And so 40 miles meant like an hour and a half's drive at least each way. So we thought, we're going to have some problems. And our team was comprised of a creative director, a user experience designer, a production designer, 2 IAs. This is not part of the quiz. Who knows what an IA is? You can just shout it out. Say again? Information architect. Yeah, we don't really call it IA anymore. But anyway, we had 2 at the time because it was the year 2000. And we had a content strategist, and I was the production designer at that time. And what happened for us, because we didn't have the regular tools at our disposal, the things that were part of this design process that we had sort of come to depend on, was that we were all thrust into this idea of the beginner's mind. And this is a concept in Zen Buddhism that says having an attitude of openness, eagerness, and a lack of preconceptions when studying a subject, even when studying a subject at an advanced level, just as a beginner in that subject would. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. And, 20 years after doing something, especially, I think, if you've sort of fallen into something that is like the thing that you do, whether it's logo design or whether it's, app design, it's very hard to cultivate the beginner's mindset after it's like, this is my 10th app, like I know this stuff. But because we didn't have access to research, because we weren't very familiar with touchscreen technology, it created this sort of equalizing effect among the team. And for me, as a production designer, kind of the lowest person on the totem pole, it gave me access and kind of a place in the project where I had more of a voice than I feel like I normally would have. So the first thing that we did was we figured, okay, well, we have a bunch of questions. And so we created a war room, and we met in the war room every day. This is not a picture of our war room because, remember my phone? It didn't take pictures. So if you wanted to take pictures of anything, you either had to have a camera or you had to have your digital camera in addition to your phone and your like bajillion pound, laptop or desktop computer. Like, it wasn't happening. So imagine a room filled with Post-it notes. And so we wrote down all of these questions. And we took the time to answer them. So we would spend time in this room. We would ask all the questions that we wanted to ask. We put up the Post-it notes. We collected them into these different categories. And then they were just assigned. It didn't matter what your role was. It didn't matter what the pecking order was. It mattered. One of the big debates was whether the keyboard should be alphabetical or whether it should be QWERTY. And it was just the person who was most interested, the person who cared enough to really want to solve that problem. It was their job to do the research. Right? And we felt our decisions were too subjective. We had no way to evaluate, are we making good decisions? Are we making bad decisions? So we created some design attributes, and again, they were posted in the room. And, the design attributes were kind of generic. I think they're common design attributes that come up a lot. It was things like, simple and friendly. But still, this was a framework by which, if we felt that we were getting too far off track or we couldn't make a decision, we could invoke the framework and say, well, is that actually simple? Is that actually friendly? And it gave us this sort of semi-external perspective that helped us make decisions. We didn't understand the competition at all, so we conducted a competitive audit. And I know that I said it was primarily in banking that touchscreen technology was at a consumer level, but it was a little bit at airports too. And I don't know if you guys remember, but there would be like all these kiosks and no one would be near them. And then there would be a gate agent, who was like, come on, it's okay, come over here. right? Because I mean, I had a grandma who was like, if you touch the television, you got in trouble. You don't touch screens. In the year 2000 and the years leading up to the year 2000, you did not touch a screen. You did not do that, or you would get in big trouble. So overcoming that mental model for people took a really long time. In fact, on the kiosk project that we actually had this attract loop, which was this little animated character who said, come on down, like, can't find your Kenny Chesney CD? Like, we've got it for you. And this thing was so irritating. I'm sure, like, imagine being an associate in the store and having to listen to this thing over and over. But this kiosk was unmanned. It was unstaffed, on an end cap, and looks like a screen. So we needed to figure out ways to invite participation. And again, I said, most of the team had never been to a Walmart. So we got in the car and we went. And, we disagreed a lot, and we met in that war room and we talked about it and we talked through it. And so this is a 18-year-old interface. What do you guys think? Not bad, right? Thank you. I mean, in some ways it still holds up. It's got a nice tight grid. Who doesn't love that? It's got Verdana. I mean, who doesn't love that? So that was the home screen. This is a keyboard. This is the search results screen. So, you're looking for Tom Petty and you have all these choices. You could get it on a cassette, which is awesome. Who remembers what a cassette is? Oh, there's some hands. That's great. That's fantastic. Very cool. This was the item page. And I mean, not bad. Look at this functionality. This is pretty dense functionality. Lots of options and ways for people to interact and learn more about this. Whose CD is this? Oh, this is Tom Petty. Yeah. So, you can listen to a track, multiple discs. You can control the volume. This was pretty sophisticated, right? And then, of course, checkout flow. Oh, that was my question. Shoot. I was going to ask you guys why the bevel is so strong on the buttons. It's a touchscreen, right? Because we were afraid that people wouldn't know that you could touch it. Well, at least you get to see the awesome animation again. So we did music and movies. We did Photo Center. We did gift registry. We did a hiring application. We also did cellular. Cellular was even crazier than music and movies because cellular phone activation, the bundling and the different perks that you get are intentionally different from each other. So trying to put several different plans next to each other from several different carriers on the same screen was very hard. And so after we did all this, the project got shelved. So music and movies ended up in the stores for a little bit, and Photo Center did for a little bit, and then done. So worked on it for a year and a half and then done. Sad. But we learned a lot, and it's something that I still talk about today. So we learned that getting off the Z-axis is imperative for co-creation. So we talked about those decks earlier in slide 27 and slide 35 and all that stuff. But when you have all this information around you, your brain starts to make connections. And I know that finding a war room can be very, very hard in some of the companies that you guys might work for. Conference room space is at a premium, but I fight for a war room every time because I see so much value in it. The only way through this is together, right? So this crazy, I could not have done this project alone, and I don't think anybody on the team could have done it alone, right? We need each other, and we need our diverse skill sets and our diverse perspectives to get through this work. And a real appreciation for beginnings. As I mentioned, because we all had this beginner's mindset, for someone like me who felt like the lowest, person on the totem pole, all of a sudden I was like working at in some ways at a peer level with people who had a lot more experience than me and who really looked up to me. And I think in the end, we came around to really trusting each other, which was amazing. So with that, I want to leave you guys with these 10 tips of things that you can do to wield ambiguity. So the first is begin anywhere, and this is from John Cage, the experimental composer, and it's just 2 words, right? But what if you just let your pencil wander, right? What if you didn't wait for the research to be done? You didn't wait for an invitation to be in the meeting where you thought other people were deciding, but you followed that intuition that you have, and you just let it out, right? And I think that's on a sort of personal level, but on a group and a team level, when you're the person who steps up to the whiteboard and says, yeah, I know that sucks, and that's not good, and Michelle doesn't like the color yellow, but what if we did this? All of a sudden, you're changing the energy in the room and you're changing the direction of things. Ask questions. So I got fired from my first job for talking too much. I have a lot of questions. And chances are that other people have those questions too, right? So in the case of Michelle, who doesn't like the color yellow, asking why. Maybe yellow is it performed bad in the research, right? And so all you heard in the meeting and the hearsay was that Michelle doesn't like it. But what you didn't realize is that it performed bad in the research. And so then it becomes not about someone's opinion, but it becomes about the success of the project, which might lead to experimentation with different colors. Anyone can lead. So defy pecking orders that don't serve you. Right? So if it's a pecking order that's keeping you from having an idea, from expressing your vision, right? Just defy them. It's all in your head. Know your shit, right? Don't wait for the research to be handed to you. If you have a passion and a curiosity about what you're designing for, that's fuel. Sharpen your goal. So put in the hard work up front to do the definition. Nuance the why and the what, because the how always follows. I can't tell you how many projects that I've been on where I ask what the goals are and there aren't any, right? There aren't any. And when you ask people what the goals are and there aren't any, people don't like that. They don't like that. But I think digging into helping that group of people define them serves everybody, because the work has to align with the goals. If it doesn't align with the goals, then it's all for naught. Proposing solutions. So the creative director that I mentioned on the Walmart.com project, her whole thing was propose solutions. You could not go into her office with a problem if you didn't have a solution. And I kind of hated her for it, but it's extremely good advice. Bringing problems in the workplace without proposing solutions is just a waste of everyone's time. I think proposing solutions, again, it moves the ball forward. Really listen. So there's a difference between hearing and listening. And I think that, for me, in that experience of the War Room and being at Walmart.com, it was a less distracting time to be in the workplace. We didn't have smartphones, we did have computers, but because there were less distractions, we were more focused on what each other was saying. And because of that, I think we really heard each other. And this is very hard to do. I'm extremely guilty of this, but the more that we can offer our focus and our real focus to our coworkers and our colleagues, the better the work gets. Don't get attached. Think of the ideas as stepping stones rather than an end result. This is really hard too. Maybe you worked on something for 18 months or, a year, and somebody comes in and says, yeah, but what if we turned it upside down? And it's like, oh, you have no idea how hard it was for me to even get it to where it is now, right? It's hard to let go of this stuff. So, and I'm not saying you have to give up your position. You don't. But I think asking yourself this question, like, am I holding on maybe when I shouldn't be? Be courageous. So Julia Cameron says creativity is a leap of faith, right? And there's no perfect way to design. There's no same design process that, unfolds perfectly every time. But I think if you can locate this certainty and this idea that design is your calling, then it just flows, right? And it's just a ride. You're just on the ride, and it's just what we do. And the last one is collaborate, right? So the only way through this is together. And I wanted to just quote this from Bruce Mao, where he says the space between people working together is filled with conflict, friction, strife, exhilaration, delight, and vast creative potential. So, recap of the tips: begin anywhere. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Anyone can lead. Know your shit. Sharpen the goal. Propose solutions. Really listen. Don't get attached. Be courageous and collaborate. So with that, does anyone have questions? Oh, thank you. Questions? No questions? Oh, yes. What's your name? So Chelsea works on a small team and she collaborates at work, but she's asking how to work through whitespace when you are working independently. And for me, I really think it's curiosity. I think it's, whatever it is about the thing that you're about to embark on, the first thing I do is figure out, can I try it? Can I experience it? What else is like it? Who else is working on something like that? And then for me, all of a sudden, those adjacencies start to create possibility. Anyone else? Yes. I don't know if there was a particular. Oh, so what's your name? So Destin asked about the three demons and if there was a moment where I realized that those are the three. I think they're all related to imposter syndrome, and I think that over the years, in the last few years, I've realized that I have it. I have it. And I don't always have it, which is weird, but I don't think uncommon. So I don't know. I can't say that there was a light bulb moment, but I think that it's kind of been a coalescing for quite some time. Yeah. Anyone else? You asked, what's your name? Matt. So Matt said that he said I mentioned Twyla Tharp and wanted to know if there were other books that I recommend. So the Bruce Mao, the thing that comes to mind for me is I also got really interested in creative manifestos. And Bruce Mao, the quote that I used is from Bruce Mao's Incomplete Manifesto for Creative Growth. And it's like 20, 30 principles. I also think that oblique strategies is fascinating. Does anyone know what oblique strategies is? Oh, there's a person in the back, a couple people. Yeah, so Brian Ito, along with an artist whose name escapes me right now, created a deck of cards. It was a set of tips of things that would unblock them in their creative process. There's actually an app. I heard that there's an Alexa skill for oblique strategies. So I don't know, maybe it's because of Paper Jam and sort of liking these like very succinct ideas that I got more into the like manifestos that are declarative and succinct. But I think that the Bruce Mao manifesto is very interesting, and also oblique strategies. Anyone else? What's your name? Tom was asking, as he was saying, designers are more comfortable with maybe taking some creative risks, and he was asking about bringing engineers or other people from other disciplines along. I think a lot of it is trust and enthusiasm. I think when you give a shit about something, like that's compelling, And and from an authentic place, not from a selling place, but in a real passion for it. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Anyone else? Oh, how do I juggle imposter syndrome? Well, I fret a lot, and I see a therapist, and I just work at it. I recognize that it's something that I deal with, and I start to recognize when it's happening, and then I try to do some exercises that sort of dispel that. So yeah, it's kind of an alchemy, a personal alchemy, but I do think that you can work at it and you can get a handle on it. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes. You have a Michelle. Okay. What's your name? Sadie has a Michelle, and Sadie is saying that she has a Michelle, and there's several layers of people. Where? Oh, several people are saying what Michelle said. Yeah, yeah. On behalf of Michelle. Yeah. Oh, Michelle. Is Michelle accessible to you? Not really. Yeah, that's hard. Is Michelle accessible to someone who you like, to your boss, to your manager? It depends. I feel like you need to work with your manager or directly with Michelle to get to the source. I'm a get to the source person because I don't suffer the sort of pivoting and cycles very well. So I don't know, maybe try, have you brought it to your manager? Yeah. 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 So Sadie's saying she works in a really matrixed environment, and so it's very hard to figure out what information is actionable and kind of control for feedback. I don't know. I think you could try setting meeting ground rules, where you sort of say the kind of feedback and information that you need, but you would have to work with a team to get to a place where you agree that that's the way that you want to interact with each other and the way that you want to conduct meetings, which is kind of hard to advocate for, but can be very effective. Anyone? Yeah. How much research is ever enough? That's a good question. How much research is ever enough? I don't know. I don't know. I think in user experience design, like in qualitative feedback, it's not uncommon to have groups of 6. That seems to be where trends break down. I think in quantitative research, you're looking for numbers. I think in ethnographic research, you're looking for depth and also range. And so it really depends. I think that if you're the recipient of ingesting that research, then it's a personal barometer of, do you feel that you have enough information to be successful? Yeah. Okay, we'll do one last question. Anyone? No more questions? Okay, great. Thank you guys. Oh, wait. Oh, no, sorry. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. I didn't see you. Yeah. Yeah. What's your name? Michelle. Oh, Michelle! Woo! Oh, Michelle. Oh, Michelle. I'm really glad you're here. So Michelle's asking, like, when do you go back to the beginner's mind? And I think it's not a when. I think it's an always kind of thing. I think it's like being enlightened. Like, can you ever really get back to that place without actually being authentically in that place? But I think that maybe the further on we are in our career, the idea of the beginner's mind is really just a way for us to say, to maybe remember to be open to other people in the room who are bringing stuff that, like, you might really feel like rolling your eyes at, like, oh my God, right? And just kind of treating that as something that could be considered and maybe can stretch you in some way. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for coming. And my poster winners, come on down.